As we return now to Faris Akram, Faris, you were describing what happened to your father, who was a judge, who returned to his farm. This is on the first day of the Israeli attack on Gaza.
Mm-hmm. After that, we kept in contact with my father, who was saying that it's very safe there, and it has been very quiet and no fighting at all there. But suddenly, on Saturday, 3 days ago, as Israel was about to start the ground invasion into Gaza Strip, an F-16 warplane suddenly dropped a bomb at our two-story house there, turning it to a little more than powder, destroying it completely. We got the news after 1 hour because of the mobile networks were down in Gaza due to the overload, and because Israel hit some of the signal transmission antennas. We tried to go there, but of course the road was cut. But my brother and my uncle took the risk and they drove a jeep, sped by a jeep there, and they said the Israeli gunboats were firing at the jeep all over the way, but because the jeep was driving very speedy in a dodgy road, the missiles did not hit the jeep. When they arrived there, they found the dead body of my father as a pile of flesh, in addition to another teenager from our extended family. Though he was walking with my father into the villa, we found the second teenager thrown 300 meters away from my father's body. At that time, when some other people from my family arrived to help evacuate the fatalities, another Israeli airstrike took place, but this time by Apache helicopters, targeting one of our cars there, and a cousin of me was seriously injured when they were there. And the Israeli gunboats also kept firing on them on their way back to Gaza.
When did you hold the funeral?
We held a very quick funeral next day on Sunday morning. The convoys of the cars in the funeral were very small and short because the shelling was ongoing and the Israeli airplanes were flying overhead and were striking everywhere. I would like to mention that thousands of airstrikes have took place in Gaza and they are still ongoing. But here we have to mention that Gaza is only 360 square kilometers. When you drop this amount of bombs into this small area, it means there is no safe place in Gaza at all, and it means everything is targeted. As you may be hearing that families were killed, complete families made up of the parents and their kids were completely eliminated.
I thought it was very interesting in reading your piece about your dad, reporter's father, first casualty of Israel's ground offensive, that you said he was born in Gaza, educated in Egypt, a lawyer and judge who worked for the Palestinian Authority. After Hamas took over, he quit and turned to agriculture. Dad's father, Faris, who you're named for, I suppose, who had been driven out of his home in what is now Israeli Ashkelon in 1948, had bought the land in the 1960s?
Yeah, that's right.
And Jewish settlers had taken it over during the Second Intifada?
Yeah, during the Second Intifada, which started in 2000, until the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza in 2005, the Israeli army has sealed off all the roads leading to our farm, because at that time it was located among 3 Israeli settlements. But they allowed us to go to our farm only 2 times a week, and we have had to pass through Israeli checkpoints and the Israeli army has given us a special ID cards and permissions to enter the area. The ID cards were written in Hebrew, and they bore our photos. It means that the Israelis know all of us and know who are the people who live there. During the 8 years of violence, the area in which our farm is located has been the most quiet area in all over Gaza Strip.
You write, Faraz, that your father hated what Hamas was doing to Gaza's legal system, introducing Islamist justice. He completely opposed violence, would have worked for a just settlement with Israel and a better future for Palestinians. When the PA gained control over the West Bank, he moved to Ramallah to help establish the courts there. Your feelings as we wrap up right now, you write, my grief carries no desire for revenge, which I know to be always in vain. But in truth, as a grieving son, I'm finding it hard to distinguish between what the Israelis call terrorists and the Israeli pilots and tank crews who are invading Gaza. You ask a question about the difference between the pilot who blew your father to pieces and the militant who fires a small rocket.
Yeah, I don't see any difference between them, and there is no difference between the pilot who dropped a 1,000 kilogram bomb in a mosque in Jabalia. Jabalia is a refugee camp. It's the most densely populated area, not only in Gaza Strip, but maybe in all over the world. The Jabalia is the most densely populated area. When you drop a bomb in a mosque surrounded by very fragile houses, it means that, of course, their victims will be the residents who live in these houses. So I don't know how the pilots don't hesitate to carry out the airstrikes in civilian areas.
Faraz Akram, your wife is about to give birth?
Yes, and this is another problem, another dilemma for me. Today I have evacuated my wife to her family's house because it's closer to the clinic where she's supposed to deliver birth. It's closer to the clinic than our house. In order to I can't describe my feeling when I have to leave my wife alone in this situation and send her to her family house. And she's also worried about me because the tanks are getting more close to our house. And we know what the Israelis will do if they get near our house. They will call on us on megaphones to come out of the house, and after that, most probably they will hit the house. They have set fire now to 10 houses in the north of Gaza Strip, where when I look from the window I see piles of black smokes rising from the houses. I can't imagine what will happen to our house.
Why don't you leave it?
Yeah, I'm very sad for having to leave my wife in these circumstances, but if she goes into labor while she is in our house here, and especially if it was not dark, I know it will be very impossible to go to the hospital, even if we call the ambulance. The ambulance can't come in the night. And also in the day, it's very dangerous because when there is an incursion, when there are Israeli tanks nearby, the airplanes would be clearing the way for the tanks to advance in. And you know how the airplanes clear the way for the tanks. They fire on every moving object. They hit houses. They use the F-16 to hit open spaces among the houses in order to force the residents to flee, and so the army can go in. And even if we fled our houses, we would go to the UNRWA schools, and you hear the UNRWA spokesman, Mr. Grace, you heard what he said. He said that they attacked also the schools where the people have taken refuge.
Well,
so the best thing I think is to stay in house and to pray that you won't be harmed.
Faraz Akram, I want to thank you for being with us. Be safe. Gaza correspondent for The Independent of London. He lost his father in the Israeli F-16 attack on Saturday. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.